Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here, giving you a personal prediction for Joe Smith Jr. versus Stephen Geffrard. And as always, this is just my take. Your prediction can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all. Starting with a little bit of fight info here, we have Joe Smith Jr., who is the light heavyweight champion for the WBO, taking on Stephen Geffrard, who is a late replacement. More on that in a bit. This fight will be taking place at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York, airing live on ESPN. And it's not exactly the fight we expected, but it's a fight nonetheless. Light heavyweight titleist Smith will now battle Stephen Geffrard after the original foe of Callum Johnson had to pull out due to a positive test for, you guessed it. And now Geffrard gets the shot of a lifetime. How difficult will it be for him to overcome the sort of odds he has in his way? How good will Smith look in this fight with all things considered and a new opponent? Only time will tell. Regardless, I'm going to try and break this one down, so let's get into it. So for Smith to win, I think he needs to apply pressure early on. And I think this is going to be important for him because a number of reasons. Number one, Geffrard is a new replacement opponent. You don't know how good a shape he is in. You also don't want him building confidence as the fight progresses if he has any kind of early success. So for Smith, you're going to want to apply that pressure, really tax them, see how well he is ready for this fight, and then if he is or isn't, take that out of him so that he's not going to be feeling himself more as the fight continues on. Apply that pressure early. That's just what you are as a fighter in Smith anyway, so it's only to your benefit, and it's going to allow for you to land those right hands that you're looking to land. This is something that needs to happen early on, as mentioned, because you just don't want Geffrard growing into the fight. Instead, take him out of it as quickly as you possibly can. I would also say set up the right hand. You don't want to just throw it at nauseum and just hope that it lands. You don't want to just make it something that's so predictable. You want to make sure you're setting it up properly, especially against an opponent in Geffrard who, with all due respect to him, if you're Joe Smith as a titleist, you should be better than him. So you should be setting those sort of veteran traps that allow for that right hand to get through. Some of them are super simple, obviously. It's going to be things as simple as just a jab or a double jab or feinting or coming downstairs with the right hand and then throwing it upstairs. But you just need to find some wrinkles to make it a little more easy to camouflage it and then land it down the line. If you're throwing it just one-dimensionally and just trying to headhunt for it, you might have success. Again, it's a late replacement opponent, you just never know. But you also might be giving Stephen the sort of openings he's looking for, and there's really no reason to do that if you're Smith. So set it up, make it a lot easier on yourself, make yourself have a much easier time on the night. I would also say don't lunge in, don't rush your work. And this is kind of twofold for the reason for this. Obviously, the first one is you don't want to run into a shot. You don't want to leave yourself wide open for a counter. You don't want to look silly. You don't want to stumble, whatever it might be. Of course, you're trying to avoid all of those sort of negative pitfalls of fights. But what's more, if you're Smith facing a late replacement opponent, do you really want to do this and rush your work and lunge in and make yourself look silly against someone who probably should not be on your level? That's the perception in this one. So you want to make yourself look good, make yourself look presentable rather, because quite frankly, you're at the top or near the top of the sport and certainly in your division. You want to make sure that you look like a champion should look. This is not just going to affect your marketability, but it's also going to affect how confident you can go into certain fights with certain fighters when you're talking about trying to, ignite a sort of rivalry with Bivol or fight a better BF later down the line. If you're going into it after looking piss poor in this fight, I can only imagine your confidence is going to take a hit. So do yourself a favor and make sure you set up that work, apply that pressure early on, and with nuance, try to close the show. Now, for Geffrard to win, I think he needs to get the left hook going. He has a pretty solid one. It's pretty quick, pretty snappy. It's one that he can throw out there with pretty good regularity, and it's something that he can also camouflage with his jab. So it's definitely one of those keeper shots for him where it makes a lot of sense to use that in his repertoire. He also has a good way of setting up uppercuts and hooks vice versa with each other in that way, and so it's a nice little 1-2 combination that he can sort of throw without having to really overextend himself. And I think he probably has the faster hands out of the two of these gentlemen, so I think that left hook can find a home pretty quick. Do you want to necessarily trade shots or hooks with Smith? Probably not, but if you can get that left hook going and then kind of keep at your range, you'll have some success, and I think that's going to be one of these sort of key shots for Stephen if he is to be successful in this fight. I would also say, in general, keep your shots tight, especially if you're a fighter that's, again, coming in on late notice and you don't know what sort of shape you may or may not be in. You want to make sure that the shots that you're throwing are tight, that they're crisp, that they're They're fundamentally sound because the worse they start off, the worse they're going to get as you get tired. So at the very least, make sure you're keeping those shots tight. Make sure that you're keeping your defense tight, and you're giving Smith as little a window as possible for him to land those big shots, because Smith does have some power. So keep those shots tight. Make sure you're, just being responsible both offensively and defensively, and it's certainly going to give you your best chance. And the final step here for Geffrard is kind of a psychological one. Don't get overwhelmed on the night. Now, of course, physically, you don't want that to happen either, especially with Smith, who is probably looking to apply pressure and who's a big dude and strong and resilient and can take a shot. But more than anything else, you don't want to negatively get influenced by all of this or by the circumstances of the event or a title shot or whatever it might be, and allow yourself to mentally get overwhelmed. If you allow for that to happen, you're really not going to have much of a shot in this fight at all. You can get overwhelmed physically from time to time in a fight and hold on, grit your teeth, and kind of see yourself through it. When it comes to the psychological component to it, if you're allowing yourself to get overwhelmed too much in that way, it could be lights out very quickly. Now, in terms of my pick here, to be fair, I haven't seen a great deal of Geffrard here. It's just kind of bits and bobs. There's not a lot of media out there on him, but from what I've seen, this is the prediction I can make. It's a little bit unfair to be reasonable. Still, a pick will be made all the same. I actually think Geffrard might be able to have some strong success early on if he can get his nerves in check and start using his jab pretty quickly. He might have a bit more speed than Smith, as I mentioned, and that could help him for the first few frames. Where he might find trouble is Smith can take a solid shot, will continue to come forward, and has very solid power in his right hand. When you couple all of that with Geffrard coming in on short notice, and again, the question mark surrounding his fitness, you can see how this one could get pretty ugly for Steven on short notice. Ultimately, I think Smith slows Geffrard down with body attacks and overwhelms him both physically and mentally with that pressure, hurting him with the right hand and stopping him in those middle frames. Joe Smith Jr. via mid-fight stoppage. In terms of the betting odds, the betting odds certainly favor Smith. He's a minus 1450 with Geffrard coming in at a plus 790. To be fair, I think those odds are pretty spot on. It's not that, even has no shot or that Joe's a guarantee to win per se. It's boxing. Anything can happen. And, anything north of 168 pounds only takes a few shots to get someone out of there. That being said, there is just very little reason to believe that Geffrard is going to do this. If he does it, fantastic work to him. But as the odds suggest, and as I would suggest to you, I don't see there being a lot of reason to think he's going to do it. So the odds sort of reflect that. Again, it's a fun little long shot bet if you want to keep the fight interesting. You're basically talking about 8-1 dog odds. Why not take those? Those are pretty fun if you want to lay down a small bet you expect to lose. But outside of that, the straight money lines really don't have a great deal of value in my personal opinion. In any event, my prediction record heading into this new year here now is 2-0-0, meaning 2 correctly, with 1 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your predictions, your bets, so on and so forth. How good do you think Smith looks? Do you give Geffrard any chance in this fight, considering all of these circumstances? Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. And you can email me at jonboxing@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jonboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. Plus, there will be a link in the description box for a piece that I wrote on replacement opponents. That's just a fun little piece you can read there. Would appreciate that. And as always, until next time.